You know, we all ask ourselves this question. What does it really mean to live a good life? Well, today, we're actually going to turn to science for some answers. We've dug through the research from the past year to pull out the top insights on what truly makes a life feel meaningful.
So let's start with a big one. Is being happy just about chasing that next good feeling? That constant pursuit of pleasure? Well, it's easy to think so. But as it turns out, the real science points to something much, much deeper. So let's get right into it. The latest research keeps pointing back to three core pillars: hope, connection, and purpose. It's about mastering our inner world, building real relationships, and finding a reason for being that's bigger than ourselves. We're going to break down each one.
Okay, first up, we're going to look inward. How much do our own thoughts, our feelings, and our personal principles really shape our sense of meaning in life? Some of the answers here are pretty surprising. Let's talk about hope. It's not just another nice, fuzzy feeling. Recent research found it has this really unique, powerful link to a meaningful life. And get this, just the act of feeling hopeful, even if you're not totally sure the outcome is realistic, can give your life a greater sense of meaning. It really does seem that doing good and feeling good go hand in hand. New studies show that when the people who know you best, your friends, your family, see you as a moral person, someone fair and honest, you're way more likely to feel happy and purposeful. And that probably comes down to the fact that strong ethics build stronger, more trusting relationships. And this connection between our minds and our well-being, it's not just some abstract idea. It's physical. It's real. In fact, it goes all the way down to the microscopic little engines that are running inside every single one of our cells. Yeah, I'm talking about our mitochondria. You can think of them as these tiny batteries in our cells. And what's just incredible is that research now shows that things like your sense of purpose, self-acceptance, and strong friendships can actually improve their health. That gives you more energy and resilience, literally on a cellular level. All right, let's talk about forgiveness, because a lot of us get this wrong. We tend to think it means we have to just forget what happened, wipe the slate clean, but science is revealing what you might call a paradox. True forgiveness isn't about erasing the memory at all. So think about that. Forgiveness is really about changing the emotional charge of a memory. You don't forget the wrongdoing, but you manage to release the pain that's attached to it. And that is an incredibly powerful thing you can do for your own well-being. Okay, so we've looked at our inner world. Now, let's zoom out a bit to our second major pillar, connection. Because as we're about to see, our bonds with other people, they're not just a nice to have. They are absolutely essential for a meaningful life. Check this out. This finding is just stunning. Researchers analyzed over 100,000 different moments in people's lives, from eating a meal to doing yard work, and the result was crystal clear. Every single activity was rated as more enjoyable when it was done with another person. We are just wired to be social. And the benefits go way beyond just having more fun. When couples share positive emotions, their bodies physically respond. It can actually lower levels of cortisol. That's the main stress hormone. So all those little happy moments you share together, they have a direct positive effect on your physical health. Now, a huge ingredient for connection is, of course, trust. It's simple. People who trust others more tend to be happier. But here's the problem. We often get it wrong. We tend to underestimate just how empathetic and trustworthy most people really are. But if we can correct that misperception, it opens the door to so many more social bonds. So, how do we build that trust? Well, one really powerful tool is humility. There's this fascinating study that found that kids over 5 years old actually preferred adults who admitted they might be wrong over the ones who were super confident. Sometimes saying, "I'm not sure," is actually a sign of strength. Of course, in our modern world, the whole idea of connection is evolving. And look at this. A really significant number of young adults, especially men, are now forming relationships with AI companions. This is a huge shift, and it's something we really need to pay attention to. And these AI relationships, well, they come with a clear trade-off. On the one hand, they can offer this completely non-judgmental support, which can be great. But on the other hand, there are real risks, right? Like creating emotional dependency and maybe even weakening our ability to handle the messy, complicated, but beautiful world of human relationships. All right, let's move to our final part and zoom out even further. How do we find our place and our purpose, not just inside ourselves or with our friends, but in the wider world?
Now, you'd probably think that what gives life purpose would be totally different from culture to culture, but a major study found some really striking similarities. In countries as different as the US, Japan, India, and Poland, people consistently put family and self-sufficiency right at the top. And things like getting recognition, way down at the bottom.
Here's a really cool concept to think about. Instead of just asking which countries are the richest or the happiest, this metric asks how happy a country is for its level of wealth. Think of it this way. It measures how good a society is at turning money into actual well-being for its citizens. For example, you can take a country like South Korea, which has a very high GDP, but its happiness score is relatively low for that amount of wealth. But then you look at a country like Nicaragua, which reports much higher life satisfaction than its GDP would ever predict. It just goes to show a truly thriving society is about way more than just money.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground here, from our own cells all the way up to global societies. So what's the takeaway? What does this all mean for you and your own life?
Well, it really boils down to these three big ideas. First, cultivate that inner world. Remember that hope, morality, and forgiveness are superpowers. Second, prioritize real human connection. Share things with people, build trust, be humble. And third, look beyond yourself. Find a purpose that's bigger than just your bank account. So, at the end of the day, you can think of it like this. The science gives us a map. It gives us a guide based on the best evidence we have. But where you choose to go with it, the path you decide to take from here, well, that's entirely up to you.